Warning. This podcast is about to open the sealed section of spirituality.
Hey you, yeah you, we see you, you divine human being.
And we are calling you to come home.
We are ready to talk about the real shit. We're going to get real about life as a divine human being.
The good, the not so great, spirituality and taboo. Divinely Human is the podcast that's all about what it means to be human in a spiritual context.
We know it's not just about being spiritual, it's about being human too.
And that means changing poopy nappies and channeling angels.
Sometimes even at the same time. It's time for us to stop making other people's noise our own soundtrack of life.
Let's make some waves together so that we can all ride them together and create deep resonance, a sense of home in this crazy world.
Pour yourself a coffee
or a glass of wine if that's your potion.
And sit down with your new favorite spiritual sisters
as we go on a journey together into what it means to be
a divine human being
on this spiritual journey. Hello and welcome to the Divinely Human podcast. I am your co-host Aleisha.
And I am Tanita.
We are looking forward to diving into a few things today on the podcast. Two very particular things actually that were brought through by our community in regards to fear and also in regards to just running a soul-led business. So I'm kind of excited to see where this goes and to see how we navigate this conversation. I know that they're both two things that we've touched on before. Business-wise, we've touched on it quite a bit, but I'm really, truly feeling excited to see what comes through in terms of navigating fear when it is always wanting to rear its ugly head. So let's get into it.
Yeah, I'm excited. And this is coming at a really potent time for me personally. Currently, like putting the hold on all my business stuff that's going on and really dealing with a lot of fear that's actually coming up. So this is like prime time for me to be talking about this at the moment.
It is. Isn't it funny how that always works that way? It's always like relating back to stuff that we're moving through.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like for me, fear is something that I feel constantly. I'm not going to lie and say that I don't. It's always something that's rearing up, especially, I know that for those of you who are watching or listening to this, know that I do suffer from anxiety. And that's been particularly bad lately, more heightened. So there is a lot of feeling of fear in lots of things that I do. But I find like for me, it's just the way of working, like how I work through that is what is important. It's like I'm not going to, and I've come to the place where now I've stopped beating myself up about feeling it and just thinking, okay, well, how do I redirect this? How do I work through this? Let's break this down. Why are you feeling this way? So for me, that's been one of the most powerful tools is to just sort of like accept the emotion first and foremost, and then just work your way through it.
Yeah. When this question got sent in from the community and it was like, how do we live without fear? And I was like, girl, if I knew like the secret magical formula to live without fear and just be in confidence 24/7, I would be taking it. But the truth is, from my experience of just in my own life and hearing many others experience with fear, I don't think fear is something that leaves us forever and we're fully just embodied in confidence 24/7. I think it's a choice to step beyond that fear and alchemize it into momentum forward rather than spiraling downward. And that's kind of what it sounds like happens for you, Leish, because I'm exactly the same. I have so much anxiety, especially right now, going through some major shifts. Like if you're watching us, I'm in a completely different recording location. I'm sitting outside in the city, and I'd be lying if I told you I'm not super fucking nervous about how this is going to look, if we're going to have enough time to record, like if I'm going to be able to eat my lunch. Like all of these thoughts that are tied to fear come up for me at the moment. But I think the one thing that I always take away is, can I move with this still? Can I show myself that it's okay to have these fears and yet not let them block me from what I truly desire, which is to be here in community with you all, is to show up, is to be able to manage not only working a corporate job, but running a soulfully aligned business, sharing what I want online, hosting this podcast. And so I don't know, if you're asking this question to me, I would say I don't think it's 100% possible to live without fear. I don't know. What about you?
I mean, it would be biologically impossible. I feel like it's so intricately primed into our primal body and mind. It's like we're supposed to have that reaction. It's just that this day and age, our nervous systems are so overpowered and so like overloaded is probably the best word to use for that. We're just completely overloaded all of the time with so many things. We take on so much. The pressure that we feel this day and age compared to how we probably felt even 50 years ago is crazy when you think about it, right? There's people like 50 years ago, well, I'm not going to generalize, but most, like if we brought the statistics up and we're speaking about women, the most that they would, was expected of them is to just stay at home and look after the kids, or to like look after their partner or whatever, their husband or whatever. Okay. Now we're expected to also, travel through motherhood if we choose to do so, juggle, making an income and supporting a family, juggle still managing to kind of like get out and about and have a social life. Like it's just so different to what we're used to. So I find that we are really, really overloaded and we do feel fear. But I think, and it comes back to as well, like, the episode we did about listening to your body and distinguishing whether it's like an actual threat or whether it's just like maybe you do need to go about it a different way, or you are being redirected, but then also just listening to her, I think, is just so important,
Yeah, totally. And this reminds me of like when I was learning about psychology in university, they were explaining that our primal senses are still very, very caveman stage. So your brain senses fear and it thinks automatically death, you're going to die, like goes into survival mode. It doesn't always have this spectrum of like, oh, okay, so it's a little bit of fear, like you don't need to worry. You actually have to talk yourself through that consciously and calm your body and your nervous system down. Not to mention exactly like what you were just saying, the fact that we are living in today's day and age with so many different pressures, our body and our nervous system hasn't quite caught up. We still have a very similar, internal system than what we did like in the history of humanity. So we have to be so kind to ourselves and gentle on ourselves. The thing that is evolving is our energy system, is our consciousness, is our state of awareness. And so knowing that part of your humanness is attached to these really deep survival instincts, that to me is like a sign to say like you can talk yourself through anything that you're going through. And it's important to recognize that the pressure that we're under right now is so, so different than what our bodies used to. And I love what you said about just connecting back with the body and asking her like, is this a sign to stop or is this a sign to like keep going?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it's really funny. I think I spoke last time about like seeing a psychologist frequently at the moment, which I have been doing. And it's really funny. She actually gave me an exercise to do over the last fortnight, is to, whenever I feel like threatened or an immediate threat come up triggered by my anxiety, which is usually a fear, it's very fear-based. And so a lot of the time when we feel fear, we actually don't know why.
Yes.
It's so hard to pinpoint. So, and then there's also like having to establish like a rational mind over what you're actually feeling. Because a lot of the time it's just the brain telling us something and then we're like, okay, I'm going to believe it. So she's got me doing this exercise where when I do feel this come up, it's like I have to think about like if I was in a courtroom with the fear. And she was like, now give me all of the reasons for like this fear to why it is not guilty. Like what makes it valid? Like what are some valid reasons why you should be scared of this? And then afterwards she said, and then come and give me some reasons for the defense side. Like why is this something that maybe you shouldn't be as fearful of or that you shouldn't be worried about as much? After she gave me that to do, she then said to write a new statement or rephrase the statement that I feel and think about that fear. And after moving through that a few times, I was like, wow, a lot of the time the initial reaction to fear is just fear. It's not a rational thought that comes after that first triggering, point of feeling it. It's like, we do need to integrate this stuff and we're always going to have to integrate it. It's just how we integrate it and how we move through doing that counts. It's, as you said, it's not about erasing it. We're all going to feel fear. Even like the most brave, courageous people that we look at and view in society or, wherever that we've seen in history have felt fear at some point in their life, if not many times in their life. But quite clearly they have a really great, sharp way of moving through it and integrating it and just talking to yourself. I find self-talk is a huge thing, especially for me.
Yeah.
Like even at the moment, I'm like, you can do this. What do you mean you can't do this? You can do this. And I find that it helps so much. It's the most simple thing. But we really do tend to discount ourselves when it comes to how we speak to ourselves, right? And I think that, if you're going to do anything, like rephrase how you start to actually communicate with yourself in here, because what happens after that is like you end up following through with action after that. And it makes so much difference. I can't even express.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I do not resonate more with what you just said. Like that is so true. And it reminds me of I remember when I started going back to the gym after I had Madeline, and I put it off for so long because my self-talk was just absolutely disgusting. And I was being so hard on myself. And so when I went back to gym, the whole time I was just thinking all of these negative thoughts, and it actually really affected my training and I didn't want to go back. And then I remember just being in this state of mind of just what if I just tried to be positive to myself and encourage myself and motivate myself. And I created a whole playlist, and I went back and I had the best training session ever. I was positively talking to myself, and it made such a big difference. So you're so right. That internal talk is so key. And it really does have such an influence on our mood. And I think we forget just how often we talk to ourselves. There's some crazy statistic out there that says you repeat your thoughts 70% of the time during one day. And you're like, if that is all negative, imagine the effect and just the emphasis of negativity that you're putting on your own self. And it's not always about thinking positively 100% of the time, because that's also not attainable. It's just in those moments where you have a choice, choosing to encourage yourself and motivate yourself and be kind to yourself, not necessarily speaking down to yourself, which I feel like a lot of us, especially women, are really healing.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really funny too, just a side note, not funny. It's interesting that a lot of people assume that just because we show up online and in our businesses that we maybe don't feel it a lot, we don't feel the fear. And I just want to say that that's just not true. We all feel it, even just showing up in our businesses. We feel it. I feel it so often. People are blown away when I tell them that I have social anxiety. They're like, no, you don't. You seem so confident. I'm like, I just do it that much now that it isn't a fear for me anymore.
Yeah.
And it was so funny. I was having a discussion with my partner over the weekend about anxiety. And he said, I just don't get it, Aleisha. He said, like, the stuff that you do, I look at that and go like, that's scary. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, you know, like, start a podcast and just talk about stuff. And sometimes you guys get on and you don't even know what you're talking about before you start talking. He was like, that for me would be the most stressful thing in my life.
Wow.
You know, and I was just like, wow, that's insane. And like, I look at him and the stuff that he does, I'm like, you stress me out. Like, you will just, I don't know, like, he's just so random and spontaneous. I'm like, that stresses me out. You know, that would be the most stressful thing in my life. And it's just funny. If we commit to doing something, which is actually a really great segue into speaking about business, because if we do commit to doing something, it becomes less scary each time we do it, right?
Yes. I love that. That's hilarious. And it makes me reflect on my own relationship too, where I'm like, the things you do literally stress me out. They give me so much anxiety. So I think it's all about perspective too. But for me, I know that fear is just an indication to deepen healing and like my own inner work as well. So that's funny. And I think when you do step into business, a lot of those fears come up because if anything, business expands. I feel like business is very obviously closely tied with the energy of money, which is such an expander. It expands what's already there. And so when you do step into business and you commit yourself to the process, there's this sense of like bringing everything up that needs to be healed in order for you to really lay your foundations and grow your business. For me, building a business has been one of the most scariest, wildest, unpredictable, beautiful, magical rides that I've ever taken. And yet I still find that fear is still coming up, and I think it will always continue to come up. But now the fear is shifted, and this is my own personal journey, but the fear is shifted from what do people expect of me to, holy shit, what if I keep doing this and I don't live up to my own desires? And so the expectation and the fear around that has shifted. And I think this is why it's so important, if you are building a soulfully aligned business, you have to be in tune with yourself. You have to be in tune with your own emotions, and you have to be so kind to yourself because so much comes up, and support system has been major. I'm curious, like, what has been some major fears that have come up for you around business? Because I think the more we talk about it, the less like mysterious they are, you know?
Yeah. Oh, two things that come to mind is just expectations that people have on me.
Yes.
That's a huge one for me. You know, I always feel like I'm under delivering even if I'm over delivering, you know, like that's only how I see it. And that is only really something that I've kind of been able to release and work through, is just like, you don't always have to do so much and hold these expectations on yourself. And then the other thing is just around, I don't know, I feel that I fret about not coming across grounded or authentic. And I think that's a huge fear in business, because we are in a space where a lot of people just do this work from a place of ego. And my biggest fear in this space is being perceived as one of those people, because I can't disassociate further from the fact, you know?
Yes.
It's
oh my
just
God.
so frightening.
That's crazy. Yeah, I'm nodding profusely over here because I feel exactly the same. And this has actually been a major block of mine in business for a long time. And it's what's held me back. And I know it's also what's held you back to some degree in launching offers and showing up, because there is such a vast, and before I continue, like, it was so funny. I'm doing this 2023 business audit for a client, and I was connecting with her business's spirit and asking, how do you want to show up next year? And all it was saying was, I just want to show up so unfiltered, because right now there is such a sea of polished, primed, strategized material out there that is so disconnected from the real human authentic nature. And so it was really beautiful, and it reminded me that like that is something that's held me back so much. And that's also ties into like wanting to show up in a certain way because it's been modeled in our world that that's how you get success or that's how you gain clients' trusts. And I think it's really scary to go out on your own and trust your own intuition and let her lead you rather than following that blueprint. And I know we've talked about this like briefly, but following somebody else's success blueprint actually takes you so much farther away from your own true mission. But that's scary too, because there's nothing to follow. And for those of us who like to plan and strategize and do have anxiety, not having a plan sometimes is really, really fucking scary. So it's funny you brought that up because I'm really feeling that right now.
Yeah, it's so scary to just go out on a whim and intuitively navigate it, right? It's so scary. But like, how much energy, time, and money are you willing to waste in trying to put on someone else's blueprint, right? And I think it's so funny. Like, I feel like, we've spoken about so many times about offering, business mentoring and stuff like that. But I really do feel like it's still integrating and waiting, because there needs to be a specific way to bring that through so that we're not doing that. Does that make sense? Like,
totally.
There needs to be so much care in how you bring this across and how you support people in business, in this kind of business, that it's not something that you wake up, you have an awakening or whatever the hell you want to call that. That's another podcast in itself. I was discussing this morning with a group of people.
Like, drink cacao every day and like meditate for 30 minutes every day.
Yes.
They're not prerequisites to running a business. Sorry.
They're not prerequisites. They're not. And they're also not prerequisites to be guiding others in launching or to be clarifying their own business. And yes, it's a very unregulated industry, but I just really want to emphasize that there needs to be so much care brought through in supporting other people when it comes to this stuff. And I know that you and I are both very careful about what we say in terms of when we do help and provide support. We did a whole 3-day boot camp on business support, and not once were we trying to sell our plan or our blueprint. What we did do is strengthen people's own values and allow people to explore, and kind of stabilize what their values were so that they could build something of their own on top of that. And I really do feel like that is the key. That is the key to launching any kind of soul-led business, and having it be a space that, one, is successful, two, you build a community and people that trust you and want to be in your space, not just for what you're offering, but for who you are. And it kind of gives you as well, like, longevity in, like, just wanting to be here and to do this and to keep going back and thinking of ways to expand yourself and what to bring through. Like, it's never just like, oh, I've decided I'm doing this and that's it, and I'm gonna, it's not something that you can sell like that. right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I feel like if anything we learned during that 3-day boot camp was that people have been primed to expect the success blueprint. They've been expected, like they're expecting to fast track their business. And the truth is, and this is a really hard truth to, you know, integrate, but when you're building a business like this, one that is so soulfully aligned, one that is an extension of you, the truth is it's not going to be a straight and narrow path up. And traditional business teaches us, you know, we should have all of our numbers aligned. We should be able to calculate absolutely everything. We should be able to have foresight into how much money we're going to be making and how many people we're going to be impacting. And the truth is, if this is attached to you and it is an extension of you and spirit, it's never going to look like how you've seen it in other businesses played out. We are literally creating a whole new wave of type of business. We're creating a new way of dealing with people and exchanging and putting our offers and our creations out into the world. This is new stuff. And I think it's so hard. And I speak from the eye here. It's so hard to be the one to do that. And although there are many of us in this community who have soulfully aligned businesses, no one of us is doing it the same. And I think it's beautiful, but it's also tough. And this links to fear because fear can hold you back. And I think we have to remember like why we're doing this. And that's why I love doing that 3-day boot camp. But I think exactly what you said, I don't think we're ready for that next step because there's still so much dropping through around how to ethically, sustainably, and really soulfully do this next chapter of supporting people in this community. So yeah, it's a really interesting topic. And I know we're so passionate about it because we've seen the effects that it has when people get really shitty business advice, like business advice for like corporate building for a soulful business. Like it just doesn't fucking work. And it's so annoying because the detriment it has not only on that person's business, their income, their well-being, their health, both physical, emotional, spiritual, it is so impactful. And that's why you have to be so careful about the advice that you take from others. And I think, and I hope next year we're going to see people seeing through the cracks of really shitty business advice from people who want to run a corporate job in a spiritual world, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so scary. And there's such a, I can't even agree more. There is such a big reason why we haven't launched into this and that we aren't pushing this out. And because there needs to be integrity. And, you know, we both know people that are still trying to recover from working with people that have really damaged not just their own energy, but the business they are trying to grow and evolve. Like, it's just so big. Like, you know, I know people that have literally just quit and just exited the whole community because of what they've been through working with these coaches. And they're no longer here in the community. And my heart aches because I think that when you are starting a business or, you know, soulfully aligned business, especially, is that we are all naive. We start off quite naive, but we need to exercise discernment when it comes to getting advice and help off people, because all it takes is, you know, and I don't want to scare anyone, but all it takes is, you know, like one bad piece of advice or someone to tell you what to do and you just feel like pressured to have to do that. And it could completely change the trajectory of your business and maybe not for the best. So definitely, I feel like your own intuition, your own discernment, your own ability to detect authenticity in others is so needed. Like, we got to take off the rose-colored glasses in this community, because so many people are wearing them and so many other people are sort of like not really working from a place of integrity and in an ethical way. So like values, discernment, just trust in self before anyone else is just 3 big things that I think are really important. I'm really interested to know if you want to add anything to that as well, Danita.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, if you are somebody who really values the advice or the guidance of another person in this space, or maybe not even in this space, anytime you do receive guidance, advice, a direction forward, really sit with it, because it's not a rite of passage to receive bad business advice. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. And you can utilize whether or not you want to receive this and use it in your directions. But if you don't align or you don't resonate with what came through, if it doesn't feel good in your body, let it go. Something that I love to do is literally just wipe my hands clean and say, you know what, like, I reject that, return back to sender. I don't actually want that to affect me, my energy system, or my business. And just know that your business chose you, your energy system, your current beliefs, your dreams, your desires, your vision. It didn't choose anybody else. So trusting what comes through from your own channel, your own body, first and foremost, before taking anybody else's advice. And that goes for us too as well. Like, we're here just sharing what we've learned, but ultimately it's up to you to use discernment and to choose your own path forward.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I could not have said that better myself. I feel like that is it. Can we get that on a plaque on the wall? I feel like it's perfect. It's so perfect. And it's such a beautiful, I feel like that's a beautiful point to finish on.
Me too. This has been really good to talk about. And it's honestly been so like healing for me to remember all of this as well, because it's so human to kind of feel like you're off path or you're going through a phase of stopping. So this has been really lovely, and I'm so curious to see what everybody else has to think, what you guys are moving through. The more we talk about what we're moving through, the less stigmatized and mystical it feels to everybody, and we can really just strengthen everybody's own mission and purpose in business. And we're going to be doing a really fun episode next week, so watch out for details on our Instagram story, because we're going to be doing like a Christmas, like a DH Christmas party. I'm so excited, you guys. We have got Zodiac themed cocktails ready to go. We are going to get tipsy, I'm not going to lie, and we're going to be just catching up with the year and having a beautiful send-off. So yeah, watch out for that. But
we're going to be doing it live.
Oh yes, and we're going to be doing it live. It's going to be so good, honestly. But you can continue to listen, watch on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, everywhere. And if you feel like this episode would resonate with somebody that you know, please share it. We love to reach new ears, and we want to hear any feedback that you have. So don't forget to hit subscribe and rate us. Until next week, see you guys.
Bye.